Never drive into this Texas town with your doors unlocked. Narration script. Clean read copy. On Saturday, May 23, 2015, a man named Jonathan McComb was at a rented vacation house on the Blanco River just outside Wimberley, Texas. It was Memorial Day weekend. His wife was there. Their 2 children were there. 2 families worth of people were in that house, 8 of them in all. It rained that evening. Not remarkably. The hill country in May rains. Sometime after 11 o'clock, the house came off its foundation and went into the river. There was no dam failure, no hurricane, no siren. The storm that killed them was not even over their heads. It was falling on 2 counties upstream, on hills nobody in that house could see. Of the 8 people inside, 1 came out of the water alive. Jonathan McComb. 13 people died in that valley before morning. And the reason I'm telling you a river story in a video about driving is this. That weekend, the river was not the most dangerous place to be in Wimberley, Texas. The road was. Coming up, a river that gained 20 feet in a single hour, with exactly 1 gauge on it and nothing upstream. A stretch of pavement that is designed to go underwater on purpose. And the reason unlocking your doors is precisely the wrong instinct, and what actually gets you out. So here is the quiet contradiction at the heart of this town. Wimberley is lovely. That is not a setup. That is the problem. Picture the drive the way you would actually make it. You come in off Ranch Road 12 through Cedar and Limestone Hills into a square with boot shops and a wine room and a bridge over a clear creek. Down at the river, there are people floating on inner tubes with a beer in one hand, the way people have floated it every summer for 100 years. About 2,600 people live here year-round. In season, that number roughly triples. Nothing about the place reads as dangerous. Not once. Not for a second. And that is exactly the problem. Danger you can see, you slow down for. Ice makes the wheel go light in your hands. Fog you watch closing in from a half-mile out. Your foot lifts off the gas before your brain has finished the thought. Water never gives you that. Water looks like a puddle right up until it is carrying your vehicle sideways. And here's the one fact I want you to hold on to, because we come all the way back to it at the end. Not one person who died here was being reckless. Hold on to that one. Start with the night itself, because everything about this place is inside it. Here is the wildcard fact. The National Weather Service forecast 1 to 4 inches of rain that weekend. 6 inches in the worst spots. 13 inches fell. Not on Wimberley, upstream, in Blanco and Kendall counties, on ground already saturated by a wet spring, ground that had nowhere left to put anything. The Blanco was expected to rise about 17 feet. Between quarter to 11 and quarter to 12 that night, it rose nearly 20 feet in 1 hour. By 12:56 in the morning, it stood at 39 feet and was still climbing. It crested somewhere past 40 feet. Then it tore out the gauge that was measuring it. At the Ranch Road 12 bridge, the high water mark came in at 44 feet 9 inches. Now, compare that to every other weather hazard you have ever driven through. A tornado's over you. Hail is over you. Ice is under your tires. Every one of them is local. The thing that hurts you is in the same square mile you're standing in, and you can look directly at it, and your body reacts before you do. A flash flood is the only weather on Earth that arrives from somewhere else. The rain that killed 13 people fell on counties most of them had never been to. And here is the detail that makes it worse. The Blanco had 1 gauge on it, at Wimberley. There was nothing upstream of the town at all. The river's only alarm was mounted at the finish line. And there is one more thing about that night, and it is the reason anybody survived it at all. Natalie Meeks ran a venue called The Waters Point, right on the Blanco. She had between 75 and 100 guests staying in her cabins that weekend. She had no gauge reading that meant anything, no siren, and no more information than anyone else in the valley. What she had was the water in front of her, and years of knowing what it normally does. She could hear the cypress trees cracking and going over. She saw the river was already higher than a bad flood gets. So she moved every guest to high ground before the worst of it arrived, and lost 15 structures instead of 15 people. That is the entire margin in Flash Flood Alley. Not technology. One person who has watched a river long enough to know when it is behaving wrong. Clear sky overhead. Stars out. And a wall of water already an hour into the drive. And this valley is shaped to do exactly that, every time, on purpose. Here's the wildcard fact. This is Flash Flood Alley, a band running along the Balcone Escarpment through the middle of Texas, and it is one of the most flash flood-prone regions in North America. The reason is under the grass. Most of the country drinks its rain. You get real soil, sometimes several feet of it, and a storm soaks in, and the ground absorbs the hit. Central Texas has no such luxury. It has thin soil sitting on hard limestone cut into steep, narrow valleys. Rain that falls here does not go down. It goes sideways immediately, and every one of those valleys funnels it into the same few creeks. That is why the Blanco can gain 20 feet in an hour. It is not collecting rainfall. It is collecting entire hillsides. And it has been getting worse for reasons that are ours. A 2018 study out of the University of Texas at San Antonio found that development along the river intensified what happened in 2015. Vegetation stripped off the banks, pavement laid down where absorbent ground used to be. The storm itself was natural. The height the water reached was not entirely. Every roof, every driveway, every parking lot in a watershed like this is one more small refusal to absorb anything. So the town grew, the way beautiful towns do. And each year it grew, the same rain came off the same hills, a little faster and a little higher than the year before. Thin soil, hard rock, and a valley built like a funnel, aimed directly at a town. Now here is where it stops being about the river and starts being about your vehicle. Here's the wildcard fact. It takes about 12 inches of moving water to float a passenger car off a road. 24 inches will do it to most larger vehicles, and 6 inches is enough to take the steering away from you entirely. 12 inches. That is one handspan. And here's the myth, which is the most expensive belief in the state of Texas. People are convinced that a bigger, heavier vehicle is a safer vehicle in water. Truck country believes this in its bones. It is backwards, and the physics are not complicated. Floating has nothing to do with how tough your vehicle is. It has to do with how much water your vehicle displaces. A big truck is simply a bigger boat. Once the water is deep enough to lift it, all that extra weight buys you nothing. It just hands the current more mass to carry. And that current is far stronger than people can picture. 1 foot of water moving at 1 foot per second puts over 500 pounds of force against the side of a vehicle. Double the speed of the water and you do not double the force. You roughly quadruple it. A few manufacturers now advertise a wading depth. Range Rover, Tesla, somewhere around 3 feet. Read their own literature and both of them tell you the same thing in the same breath. Not in moving water. The people who built the vehicle are telling you the vehicle cannot do this. 6 inches to lose the wheel, 12 to lose the road, and a quarter ton of pressure against a door you are still sitting behind. And this town is stitched together with the one piece of road engineering built to be underwater. Here is the wildcard fact. A low water crossing is not a flaw or a failure, it is a decision. Rather than build a tall bridge over a creek that is bone dry 300 days a year, you pave a dip straight through the creek bed and accept that a few times a year it will be submerged. They are cheap. They are everywhere in the hill country. Wimberley is full of them, which means the road disappearing underwater is not an emergency here. It is a Tuesday. And that is precisely what makes them lethal. Not the danger, the familiarity. A man named Hector Guerrero grew up in Flash Flood Alley and became a warning coordination meteorologist for the National Weather Service. He watched people drive into these crossings year after year, and in the early 2000s he went looking for a phrase that could work the way stop, drop, and roll works, something short enough to get into a person's head before they have time to reason with themselves. He brainstormed it with a group of firefighters in Harlingen. Turn around, don't drown. Texas, 2003. National the following year. The Weather Service reports that roughly 80% of flood deaths in South Texas come from exactly 3 things: driving through low water crossings, walking along flooded banks, and playing in the water. Texas eventually made driving around a flood barricade a crime. Up to $2,000. Up to 180 days in jail. They had to write it into law because the sign was not enough. A dip in the road. A creek that is dry most of the year. And a crossing that has been perfectly safe every single time you have ever used it. Then the light goes, and the last thing protecting you goes with it. Here's the wildcard fact. A 2010 study published in the Journal of Transportation Safety and Security found that 77% of all flood-related deaths in Texas involved a motor vehicle. Most of them happened at night. Austin's own flood safety office puts it more plainly than any statistic can. Survivors have told them they did not see water on the road at all until the vehicle stalled in it. Sit with that, because it takes apart something you believe about yourself. You are certain you would see it. Everyone is certain they would see it. In daylight, on a road you know, You very likely would. But floodwater at night is not blue and it does not shine. It is the same black as wet asphalt, moving in the same direction as the road, with no edge, no reflection, and no depth to it at all. Your headlights go into it and nothing comes back. Compare that to any other night hazard. Fog scatters your beams back at you. Ice throws a shine. A deer gives you eyes. Every one of those is your headlights doing their job. Black water is the one thing on a road at night that absorbs the warning instead of returning it. And here is what finishes it. Water pools in the low spot, which means you're always rolling downhill into it. You're coasting or accelerating at the exact moment you should be braking. By the time the front tires tell you anything, you are already in it, and it is already lifting the back end, and the vehicle is already turning. Wimberley's flood came at 11 at night. 10 years later, before dawn on the 4th of July, 2025, the Guadalupe rose in Kerr County and 137 people died. Same alley, same limestone, both of them in the dark. Black asphalt, black water, and a low spot you're already rolling toward. So here's the actual answer. The thing all 5 of those have been building toward. Every danger you naturally respect hands you a signal your body already knows how to read. Ice makes the wheel go light. Fog you watch closing in. A curve you can see coming. Rain you can hear on the roof. Your foot comes off the gas before you have consciously decided anything at all. Not one thing on this list does that. The rain gives you no signal because it is falling in a county you have never visited. The geology gives you no signal because it is underground. The crossing gives you no signal because it has been fine every time before. 12 inches gives you no signal because 12 inches looks like nothing at all. And the dark takes away the only sense you had left. But here's the part this whole video is named after, and it is the thing almost everybody gets exactly backwards. People believe that if the water takes the car, they will open the door and get out. They will not. And the lock has nothing to do with it. The moment a vehicle is in water, pressure starts building against the outside of the doors, and it does not care whether they are locked or unlocked. A car door submerged to roughly window height is holding back something on the order of 600 pounds per square foot. No person opens that. Not a strong person. Not a calm person. Not a person with both feet braced on the frame. The door will not move until the cabin has filled and the pressure has equalized on both sides, which is to say, it opens at approximately the moment it stops being useful. So unlocking your doors is not the answer. The doors were never the exit. The window is. Most vehicles float somewhere between 30 seconds and a couple of minutes. Inside that window, the side glass still goes down because the ignition is still on. Once water reaches the bottom of the glass, pressure pins it in the frame, and that route closes too. Dr. Gordon Giesbrecht, who has deliberately put more vehicles into water than almost anyone alive, teaches 4 words in strict order. Seatbelts, windows, out. Children first, not phone, not 911, not wait and see. Every second spent on any of those comes straight off the only clock that matters. So if you are ever the one making this drive, and plenty of you will, do the small, unglamorous things. Put the windows down, the instant water touches the car. Before the phone, before the door, before you decide anything. Keep an escape tool where your hand already goes, the driver's door pocket, not the glove box. Children out first, through the window, oldest to youngest. But every bit of that is a backup plan, and backup plans fail. The thing that actually works is older and dumber and has been on a metal sign since 2003. Turn around, don't drown. Come back one last time to that Saturday night in May. 11 o'clock Memorial Day weekend. A rented house above the Blanco River, in a town people have come to be near the water since before anyone there was born. 8 people inside. 2 families and their children in cedar and limestone country on the first real weekend of summer. Not one of them did a single thing wrong. They did not drive around a barricade. They did not ignore a siren because there was no siren to ignore. They did not misjudge the sky because the sky above them was never the problem. 13 inches of rain fell on ground they could not see, and the river's only gauge sat downstream of them, and by the time the number on it meant anything at all, the water was already in the room. Jonathan McComb came out of that river alive. He is the only one of the 8 who did, and that is the real number here. Not 40 feet, not 44 feet 9 inches, not 13, and not 137. It is a phone call that stopped in the middle of a sentence. It is a house that was simply not there in the morning. It is a vehicle found days later, a mile downstream, sitting in the mud with its doors still shut. Now remember what I asked you to hold on to. Nobody here was being reckless. They were on holiday. They were driving home from dinner. They were crossing a dip in the road they had crossed 400 times without once thinking about it. The water out there is not waiting for a storm. It has never needed one over your head. It gathers in country you will never visit, off hills you will never see, and it comes down the same channels it has been using for 10,000 years into a town that is beautiful and calm and was never built to be a floodplain. After 2015, the local Watershed Association wrote up what happened and gave the report a title that says everything anyone needs to know about this place. A tragic flood. A likely repeat. It is patient. It has all the time there is, and it only needs the road to sit lower than the creek for about a minute.